On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1971. We're going to be having a listen to and taking a look at Harry Nilsson's version of Without You. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, what a song this is, originally written by Pete Ham and Tom Evans from Badfinger. And, I mean, just talking about Badfinger quickly, because I do have a few videos on them on the channel, and just the fact that there was such great musicians, such a great band, and it was such a tragic story that sadly both Pete and Tom committed suicide. And when you're talking about a song like this and royalties and the business side of the industry and getting done over by management, I'm not going to get into it in this video, but I'll leave a link to the video that I did a few years ago now on Badfinger in case you guys don't know the story. But this was originally a song by Badfinger, and when they released it, it was a slightly different version to then what has been done, with the covers certainly from Harry, and then I think Mariah Carey. I know Mariah Carey did a version because that was actually her first #1 here in the UK, so that really set her career off, and you know, from then on the rest is history. But the fact that these versions and Harry's version is a little bit more legato and a little bit more drawn out, lots of held notes rather than cutting off in the chorus as Badfinger did originally. But, I mean, listen to that Badfinger original if you want to have that comparison. There's going to be a link to this video, and I'll put a link to the Badfinger version in the description below so you guys can check that out if you want to. But we'll listen to it first with the accompaniment, and then we'll jump into the isolated vocal to just have a look at that in a little bit more detail. But let's have a listen.
No, I can't forget this evening or your face as you were leaving, but I guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows. No, I can't forget tomorrow when I think of all my sorrow. Well, I had you there, but then I let you go. And now it's only fair that I should let you know what you should know. Can't live if living is without you. I can't live, I can't give anymore. I can't live if living is without you. I can't give, I can't give anymore. Well, I can't forget this evening.
So I'm just going to jump in here because, I mean, it's great to hear the isolated vocal because, you know, you can hear so much detail in there. Even the drop-ins that we have where Harry would have been singing just the end of the chorus there, and then you have a separate take of the vocal that then comes in for the verse. The way it's been mixed as well, because during the verse, you know, that vocal is so up front. And then when we have that classic octave change, and that's what this song is all about in the chorus, having the range in order to take that lead vocal up an octave all of a sudden. And when that happens, the mix actually is pretty much unaffected. If anything, the octave higher is now slightly lower, than, I mean, talking levels wise, is slightly lower in volume than the level that we have in the verse of the lower octave. So it's really interesting because it doesn't overpower you, but you still get the appreciation of that sudden change, and it's so dramatic. That's why it has the emotional impact that it does. So we'll take it back to the beginning and have a listen to Harry's voice now isolated.
No, I can't forget this evening or your face as you were leaving, but I guess that's just the way the story goes.
And the thing is, Harry's voice has such a light quality to it, even down here, because we know that we're going to be going up by an octave later on, but here as we start we can see that we've got, B3, C sharp 4, and have a listen to the tone that he's producing.
No, I can't forget this evening.
It's like, no, I can't forget this evening. It's really light. He's not going, no, I can't, and kind of leaning into chest voice, because this is the important part, is that these notes would be sitting in his chest voice. Ah, so you could get all of that body in the sound if you wanted it. But the point about using his head voice here, he's putting those same notes, he's taking them from na to ah. It's the same note, but there's a world of difference between the expression that you interpret yourself, how you take on the emotion of what's being sung just through the way the notes have been produced, because one is really up front and one of them is a lot lighter, a lot more set back, and a lot more conversational. And talking about making it conversational is actually something that is so quiet almost. This is the effect it has. It sounds quiet, or we interpret it as quiet, when actually it's not. It's just the same volume as everything else. But when we're talking, if I now take from here, and this is my natural chest voice, my talking voice, so if I now took it here, it sounds a little bit like I'm whispering. It's now getting quieter. So you would, if you're having a conversation with someone, you'd lean in to hear what they're saying. And that's the point, that we've got this quality to it, that we're having to get closer to the vocal, obviously, because it's just a produced vocal. The volume's fine. It's not that we can't hear it, but it has that emotional impact of us being drawn into the vocal more than we would do if it was then in chest voice and letting all of that resonance take over.
Your face as you were leaving.
And here, this vibrato that we've got, is a really subtle wobble. I mean, we're not covering loads of pitch here. So it just is always in the note. And sometimes he'll throw in, and there's so much stylization in this vocal, by the way. And when I say that, I mean slides, vibrato. But even being slightly flat and then slightly, here we're slightly flat, but then we go up to the note. We're slightly flat, we go up to the note. So it's not going to sound too dramatic because we're not going sharp of the note all the time. But just in general, I mean, Harry's pitch is just spot on throughout this whole performance, but it's got the expression in there, so we're not always going to be conforming to 440 hertz tuning here on the graph. The voice just goes where it needs to.
But I guess that's just the way the story goes.
I love that stylization, the little slide up to the G sharp 3. And that's na 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 na. So let me just take that back so we can listen to it in slow motion. So you get that appreciation of that tone change. Na na. It's really fast, but blink and you'll miss it. There it was, story. And you can see that absolutely spot on with the G sharp 3 with that little stylization of a slide.
Goes.
and really controlled vibrato here. As with all great singers, you'll hear that really even vibrato.
You always smile, but in your eyes.
I don't want to stop it all the time, but even there, you always smile, you always smile. So it's almost like, I mean, we do have notes in there, but it's almost like Harry is just sliding continuously down. You always, yeah. But he's picking out the notes. I mean, it's really subtle, but it's so well done.
You always smile.
You always smile. He does spend a little bit longer on the notes, but again, all of this stylization just gives it such a unique sound.
But in your eyes.
But in your eyes. And then he's so spot on with his pitch after sliding and being quite loose with it.
Your sorrow shows.
And even here, you know, range-wise, now going up to the E4, so we're starting to get into that male tenor range, but we've got this na, so still a light head voicey sound rather than going na 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 and kind of pushing chest voice and sounding like you're struggling to get the notes.
No, I can't forget tomorrow when I think of all my sorrow.
And just to point out here how sometimes loose vocals are pitch-wise. When you're listening or looking at them like this, you notice it, but when you're listening to them, you don't notice it. Because here, I mean, talk about being flat of the C4, and then we go up to the C sharp 4. We're actually off by kind of over half a semitone here. We're actually below halfway. So sometimes I say that, you know, great singers will hit notes that aren't on the lines, and sometimes in between lines. Here we're even lower than halfway to the next note. But when you listen to this song, nobody listened to this song and said, oh yeah, it's a great song, but what about that note where he's so far out, he's closer to the wrong note than the right note? It doesn't happen because of the way that he ascends to it. But all of this freedom that he has, he's still then flat of the C sharp 4, but it's the overall context and emotion that we take in, not these lines when we're listening to it.
Well, I had you there, but then I let you go.
Again, really subtle detail, the kind of thing you're only going to notice when you isolate the vocal and really zoom in on it. This slide while holding the same phrase but changing note.
Had you there.
Had you there. So that little slide, you know, really subtle, but here you can see on the screen the way we go down to the G sharp 3 from the A3.
But then I let you go.
And it's actually all over the place. When you now listen to it, taking in the slides, the glissando, you just notice that he's doing this all the time.
And now it's only fair that I should let you know what you should know.
And just by sliding, it gives it that softer expression, because when you're being very matter of fact, when you are talking to somebody, you're quite sharp with pitch, even though people might not realize that when you're talking in pitch, and everything I'm saying now is happening at different notes. So when you talk to somebody very directly, you're saying the words. There's nothing in this voice that has any sliding in there. There'll be a tiny bit in there, but I'm putting it into that conversational space. Whereas if I'm talking to you like this, and there's quite a lot of sliding, sometimes you get that kind of thing where you go from a higher note to then a lower note. And that sounds like disappointment. There's an expression in there when you go, oh. And there's some kind of thought process that we associate with that when we talk. So when you put it in the human voice singing, you get that same emotional impact of potential disappointment, or something that, yeah, you're not happy with, or something you didn't really expect. All of these things that we take in subconsciously from the voice are there in this performance. And when you pair that with that slightly headier vocal quality, we've kind of got effectively this that kind of sound, rather than going which then becomes something entirely different when you kind of lean into the same notes in chest voice. But let's get back into it.
I can't live.
And just from a production perspective here, double tracked vocal now. So Harry has sung the chorus twice, and those vocals have just been put one on top of the next. And listen out for the octave change when we get there.
If living is without you, I can't live. I can't give anymore. Can't live.
And there it is. So we've been singing in and around, now at the G sharp 4, by the way. So we've been in and around, the A3, and then G sharp 3 is just here. So that's an octave lower. But if we just let this roll back to where we were in the verse, we can now see the F sharp 3. So we're, lower than an octave that we hit in the chorus. So we've got over an octave's worth of range. And the thing is about this octave change is that, it just sounds great, and you kind of can't wait to get there because you know it's coming up. But I'm sure hearing this for the first time, it would have had such an emotional impact in the Badfinger version, then the way that Harry, I say the Badfinger version, the original, and then this version by Harry, kind of changing it up and just making these phrases longer, holding the notes, and yeah, it's so dramatic. But anyway, going back to this octave change.
If living is without you.
You can hear now how he's changed to living is without you. He's going into that chest voice. He's not going living is without you. So again, that dynamic change between the verse, having that different expression, using that different part of his voice, different vocal register, but hitting the same notes. So being light in the verse with head voice, now living is without you. Intentionally getting heavy with it.
I can't live. I can't give anymore.
An ever so slight hint there. I can't give anymore. He's kind of leaning into it a little bit, but then
Can't live.
and the slide down. So now we are totally in belting, kind of range here. We're in chest voice. So he's not handing this off to head voice. It's not light. So we've got this. I can't live. And you get that kind of sound. If living is without you. And that kind of sound is so dramatic when you compare it with what we've just heard. But let's let it roll on a bit more.
Living is without you. I can't give. I can't give anymore.
So, now we're hitting the A4. So when he's going up there, and it's fully in that chest voice. I'll just put the piano up on screen so we have a bit of a reference point as to the notes going on here. When I talk about that G sharp 3, it means that we're going to be here, and when we're starting an octave below that, obviously we're down here. So when we're looking at the ranges, kind of mid baritone range to start with, and as we start to get into that chorus, when we go an octave higher, we're now at the top end of the male tenor range. And remember, in the chorus, this is being belted. This is just full out in chest voice. But we'll listen on a little bit more.
I can't give. I can't give anymore. Well,
And there we hear that little drop in to go back into the verse. But that was an A4, so right at the top end of the male tenor range. And it's just foot to the floor, So it means that when we go up to that A4, we have this, I can't give anymore. That kind of thing. That's probably just massively clipped on the mic. But this is the point that he's not hitting these notes holding back. And the point really is, but by keeping it all in chest voice, it doesn't mean that we're going up to, I can't give any more. I definitely wasn't doing that. Harry's definitely not doing that. But when he then goes into the verse, na na na, you now start to see where that tone's being produced for the lower notes. Let's get back into it.
I can't forget this evening or your face as you were leaving, but I guess that's just the way the story goes. You always smile, but in your eyes your sorrow shows. Yes, it shows.
And if you listen out for those harmony vocals that Harry's put in there on that second verse, you can hear how he's singing in the same range actually that he hits in the chorus in chest voice, but now he's using head voice to keep it light. So that's the note that he's hitting like that, harmony wise, so it's but behind his lead vocal. You might not be able to hear it or pick it out, but we've got two voices going on at the same time, and he's keeping it light. Because if he was belting this, of course, in the verse, it just wouldn't make sense dynamically, and it sounds like you've got some guy trying to take the limelight in the background. So he's just balancing his voice perfectly between his lead vocal and his harmony, but keeping it all in the right place where it should be for the verse. Let's get back into it.
Yes, it shows. Can't live, living is without you. I can't live, I can't give anymore. I can't live, living is without you. I can't live, I can't give anymore. Living is without you.
And that'll be the vocal for the track now. I mean, as we go back there, going back to our ranges, you can see that we're hitting that B4 that comes in. So it means we've now gone above the top end of the male tenor range. So the A4 will be here and the B will be, yeah, obviously a tone higher. But let's have another listen to that, because
Living is without you.
you know, we've still got those harmonies going on in the background. I'm just going to listen to that again. It's actually the that's the note that's being hit by the backing vocal, as well as actually Harry hitting that in chest voice, and the harmony continues and Harry's chest voice continues but then goes down to a different note. So then you get that separation effect.
Living is without you.
And then they're singing their lines independently.
I can't live, I can't give anymore. I can't live.
And just to throw in here that in order to hit these harmony lines vocally, I mean, Harry's going even higher the second time around. You've got to have the range in order to be able to do that. So when we're talking about, you know, having an impressive range going up by just over an octave for that lead vocal, we're not even taking into consideration that we've gone even higher than that with the harmony vocals. And again, that harmony vocal has got to be clear enough, it's got to be full enough to be relevant to the lead vocal.
I can't live, living is without you. I can't live.
He's going all the way up there. And, I mean, I don't want to make the mic clip again, but he's kind of applying a little bit of compression, it sounds like. So it's kind of got this, a slightly kind of more piercing sound. I mean, I don't think it's quite that clean, but this is the point when I say about it needing relevance to the lead vocal. If you went and was doing it really lightly and, you know, not being particularly strict with his technique, it's going to lose all relevance to his lead vocal. And when we're referring back to the piano, we're hitting notes here that are above and beyond the top end of the male tenor range. You know, we've got the B4, the C5, the C sharp 5, the D5. And when you're hitting notes up that high, it is really difficult to not kind of make concessions and have to get light just to hit the note. Being able to hit it with authority like Harry does here, it's just on a totally different level, and it just sounds great. And that's what's great about singers that have the ability to sing their own harmony vocals, is you do get that same voice coming at you, and especially when they've got the ability to hit notes this high up in, you know, this countertenor range effectively for guys. This video could go on all year, as I always say, with great vocal performances and great songs. But something I do want to draw your attention to that I have noticed is this really subtle change in tempo throughout the song. And when you go back to the piano intro, it obviously stands out a lot more. Have a listen to this. I mean, that really feels like it's dragging now because of where we've just left it in the chorus. So as we go forward,
I can't live, I can't give anymore, I can't live.
I mean, that is such a dramatic change tempo-wise. But this is the point. It's things like these that you don't really notice when you're listening to a song, because you're just listening to the song and you're appreciating it for the art that it is and having that emotional response to it. But all of these little things that add up to such a huge emotional impact because of the journey of the song, the fact that we started out slowly, and the faster you go with tempo, the more dramatic the song's going to sound. Especially if you started somewhere, you won't notice it. It'll be subconscious. It's not subjective, because now we can objectively see and hear that it has sped up significantly. But it's subconscious that you don't take in the speed, but it's that increase in excitement. Effectively, that's what increasing tempo does. That's the effect it has. And when you pair that with the vocal, the dynamics of the vocal going up an octave, obviously that's going to make it dramatic and going to make that vocal more exciting. It's going to take it to a totally different emotional place from where you started when you have that dynamic journey vocally, but also that journey tempo wise. So everything, if you imagine it on a graph, everything starts out at a particular place, slow and low dynamically, and then the tempo increases with that increase dynamically of the vocal and the expression and the octave higher and the chest voice, the belting. It's all going up together, so you'd get this really smooth incline effectively in emotion that you're feeling because of all of these elements being added together. But thank you guys for requesting this song for me to take a look at. As always, keep the suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below. Let me know what you guys think, and if you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys at the next one. Rock!